My husband never suspected that while I was staying at home, I started earning more than him. Having saved a considerable sum, I was preparing a surprise for our anniversary, but he beat me to it. His gift left me speechless. And before we continue, please write what country you are from and how old you are. Enjoy listening. Marina stirred the cool tea with a spoon, looking out the window. Outside the glass, a fine autumn rain was drizzling, blurring the colors of the panel buildings opposite. The day dragged on slowly, as it always did when Alexei was at work. She sighed, set aside her mug, and returned to the laptop on the kitchen table. A freelance job board page flickered on the screen. A new order. Designing a logo for a small online store. Marina smiled. She enjoyed this activity. From a housewife absorbed in diapers and pots and pans, she was transforming into a sought-after designer, and most importantly, she was earning. And lately, she was earning noticeably more than Alexei. She opened the graphic editor and immersed herself in the work. Ideas swirled in her head, her fingers flew across the keyboard. It grew dark outside the window, the rain intensified, drumming against the glass. The front door slammed shut. "I'm home!" Alexei's tired voice called out. Marina quickly minimized the design window, leaving open a page from a cooking blog. "Hi," she replied, trying to inject a casual tone into her voice. "How was your day?" Alexei walked into the kitchen, dropped his keys on the table, and sank wearily into a chair. "Same as usual," he grumbled. "It's all on me. This company only holds together because of me." Marina remained silent. She knew this routine. Alexei worked as a sales manager in a small company that supplied construction materials. He didn't like his job, but he wasn't looking for another. He said stability was more important. "What's for dinner?" Alexei asked, not looking at her. "Cutlets with potatoes," Marina replied. "Almost ready." "Cutlets again." Alexei winced. "Can't we come up with something more interesting?" Marina felt a wave of irritation rising within her. She had been busy around the house all day, taking care of their son, cooking, washing, cleaning, and now she had to listen to complaints about cutlets. "If you don't like it, you can cook it yourself," she retorted sharply. Alexei looked at her in surprise. "Why are you so grumpy?" he asked. "I just expressed my opinion, and I'm just tired," Marina snapped back. "All day alone with Dimka." "Oh, right, of course," Alexei scoffed. "Tough job, sitting at home." Marina clenched her fists under the table. She felt a wall of misunderstanding growing between them. Alexei was increasingly talking to her in such a tone, condescending and irritable. He seemed to think she did nothing, that her life was easy and carefree. He didn't see her sitting at the computer at night, worrying about every order, trying to earn even a little money to help the family. He only saw a housewife in a stained robe who was always grumbling and demanding money. "Okay, let it go," Alexei said, turning away. "Where's Dimka?" "Playing in his room," Marina replied. Alexei stood up and went into the room with his son. Marina remained seated at the table, looking out the window. The rain poured harder. She suddenly felt very sad and lonely. A few days later, Yulia appeared at their home. Alexei met her at work. She was a client, the owner of a small company specializing in interior finishing. Yulia immediately charmed Alexei. Cheerful, uninhibited, confident. She was completely unlike Marina. "Marina, meet Yulia," Alexei said, bringing her home. "Yulia, this is my wife, Marina." Yulia extended her hand to Marina. "It's a pleasure," she said, smiling. "Alexei has told me so much about you." Marina looked at her husband with doubt. What could he have told Yulia about her? That she was a housewife who did nothing? "It's a pleasure to meet you too," Marina replied, trying to be polite. Yulia turned out to be quite pleasant to talk to. She spoke about her business, her plans, her travels. Marina listened to her with interest and envy. She also wanted to be as free and independent. Alexei and Yulia talked all evening. They discussed some work matters, joked, and laughed. Marina felt like an outsider in their company. She silently set the table, served tea, and went to her son's room. Since then, Yulia started visiting them often. Sometimes she came alone, sometimes with Alexei. They drank tea, talked, laughed. Marina felt Alexei drifting further away from her and getting closer to Yulia. One evening, after Yulia had left, Marina couldn't hold back. "What's going on between you two?" she asked Alexei. Alexei looked at her in surprise. "What do you mean?" he asked. "You spend all your time with Yulia," Marina said. "You've stopped paying attention to me at all." "Don't be silly," Alexei replied. "We're just friends." "Friends?" Marina scoffed. "Do you think I'm blind? I see how you look at her." Alexei remained silent. "I'm tired of you," he finally said. "You're always unhappy, always grumbling. You've become kind of boring and uninteresting." Marina felt tears welling up in her throat. "And what do you suggest?" she asked. "I don't know," Alexei replied. "Maybe we should live separately?" Marina turned away in silence. She knew this was the end. Their marriage had been cracking at the seams for a long time, and now it had finally fallen apart. The next day, Alexei came home late. Marina waited for him, sitting on the sofa in the dim living room. She hadn't turned on the light, leaving only a floor lamp casting a soft, diffused glow on the room. The air hung with a tension you could feel. She knew this day would come. She had felt its approach in every cold glance, every sharp word, every delay at work. He entered without looking at her, threw his keys on the bedside table in the hallway. "You're not asleep yet?" he asked, trying to sound casual, but his voice carried a strained note. "I'm waiting for you," Marina replied quietly. Alexei walked into the room, sank wearily into the armchair opposite her. He looked exhausted, with shadows under his eyes. His face conveyed a sense of resignation. Marina saw right through him. She knew what was about to happen. "We need to talk," he began, avoiding her gaze. Marina nodded, saying nothing. She gave him the opportunity to start, knowing he needed it. Alexei took a folder from his briefcase, placed it on the coffee table between them. "Here is the divorce petition." Marina didn't flinch. She had expected this, but the words still hurt, like a punch to the gut. She felt everything inside her clench, but outwardly remained calm. "I'm tired, Marina," Alexei continued. "I'm tired of all this, of this routine, of constant domestic problems, of you." He raised his eyes, met her gaze. In his eyes there was no love, no regret, only fatigue and irritation. "I understand this is hard to hear, but I can't do it anymore. I feel like I'm in a cage. You're constantly nagging me, demanding something. I don't know what. You're always unhappy." Marina remained silent, letting him express himself. She knew it was important not to interrupt, not to make excuses. Let him say everything that had built up in his soul. Let him vent all his anger and resentment. "I understand you're home with the child. It's difficult. But you're not doing anything to change the situation. You're not working, not developing, you're just existing, and I have to bear everything myself." Marina felt a wave of anger rise within her. How could he say that? How could he not see how much she did for the family? How much effort she put into creating comfort and coziness in their home? But she restrained herself, didn't let her emotions take over. "I want ease, Marina. I want a woman by my side who understands me, supports me, and doesn't constantly nag and reproach me." And then he uttered the words that finally broke her heart. "I have another woman, Yulia. I feel easy and good with her. She understands me, supports me, doesn't demand anything in return. With her, I feel alive." Marina closed her eyes. She knew about their closeness, felt it, but until the last moment, she had hoped it was just a fleeting infatuation, that he would come to his senses, come back to her. But now it was all over. He had chosen her. "I understand this is painful, but I don't want to deceive you. I want to be honest. I love Yulia. I want to be with her." He fell silent, awaiting her reaction. Silence hung in the room, broken only by the quiet ticking of the clock on the wall. Marina opened her eyes, looked at him. There were no tears or hysteria in her gaze, only calm and determination. "Okay, Alexei," she said quietly. "I'll sign the papers." He looked at her in surprise. He expected shouts, reproaches, tears, anything, but not such calm agreement. You won't try to dissuade me? He asked uncertainly. Why? Marina replied. If you've made your decision, I won't hold you back. She stood up from the sofa. I'd walked to the table, took the folder with the documents, leafed through them, studying them carefully. Everything is in order, she said. Everything is correct here. She put the folder back on the table. You can leave, Alexei. He continued to sit in the armchair as if glued. He couldn't understand what was happening. He expected a strong reaction, a scandal, but received only calm agreement. It confused him. You're not angry? He asked. No, Alexei, Marina replied. I'm not angry. I'm just tired. Tired of you, of our relationship, of all this. She walked to the window, looked at the night city. Lights twinkled in the distance, creating an illusion of life and movement. I think it will be better for both of us apart. Alexei stood up from the armchair, walked over to her. He wanted to say something, but couldn't find the words. Forgive me, Marina, he mumbled. It's okay, Alexei, she replied. Marina looked at Alexei as if seeing him for the first time. Something new, alien, glimmered in his eyes. A mixture of guilt, confusion, and fear. He, always so self-assured, so condescending towards her domestic chores, now stood before her completely lost. He waited for her reaction, for hysterics, pleading requests, perhaps even a scandal. But Marina remained silent. She had already cried all her tears, cried all her pain. Only emptiness remained inside, and this emptiness gave her strength. She turned and walked towards an old worn chest of drawers in the corner of the room. She opened the top drawer, took out a thick folder tied with a satin ribbon. The ribbon had once been part of gift wrap, but Marina had saved it, like many other things, in hope for the better. Returning to the table, she placed the folder in front of Alexei. Everything is here, she said calmly, pointing to the folder with her hand. Everything you need to know. Alexei frowned. He expected anything but this. What is this? He asked, looking at the folder suspiciously. Marina sighed. Open it and see. He reluctantly reached for the folder, untied the ribbon. Underneath the ribbon were bank statements, accounting reports, screenshots from freelance platforms, client contracts. Alexei began to look through the documents, and his face gradually changed, from surprise to disbelief, from disbelief to horror. The first statements showed modest sums, small fees for logo design, presentation formatting, and banner creation, but the further he flipped, the larger the numbers became. Here was a payment for a major project, corporate identity development for an online store. Here was a fee for creating a website for a travel company. And here were monthly transfers to her savings account, amounts that significantly exceeded his salary. Alexei looked up at Marina. What does this mean? He whispered, as if afraid to hear the answer. It means, Marina replied, looking him straight in the eyes, that for the last 2 years I've been earning more than you. Significantly more. Alexei continued to flip through the documents. He saw that Marina not only earned money but also managed it skillfully. She invested, opened deposits, saved for the future, and all this without saying a word to him. The next stack of documents appeared on the table. Estimates, contracts with a renovation team, receipts from construction stores. What's this? Alexei asked with less confidence in his voice. It's renovation, Marina replied. Renovation I planned to do in our apartment, a surprise for our wedding anniversary. But apparently the surprise wasn't for you. She pointed to another stack of papers, printouts from a language school website, brochures describing advanced training courses for engineers. And these are courses, Marina continued. Courses I wanted to enroll you in. You've been dreaming of advancement for so long, complaining that you lack knowledge. I wanted to help you, but apparently you need a different kind of help. Alexei was silent. He looked at the documents as if they were a death sentence. His world, his perceptions of himself, of Marina, of their relationship, were crumbling before his eyes. He had always considered himself the breadwinner, the head of the family, the one who ensured its well-being. But it turned out that all this time He had been living in an illusion. Marina stood up and walked to the window. Evening was slowly descending outside. The city was lighting up. "I wanted everything to be good for us," she said softly. "I wanted you to be happy, but you chose a different path." She turned to Alexei. "I wasn't just saving money for renovations and courses," she continued. "I was saving for a vacation. We were supposed to go to Italy, to Venice. You dreamed of seeing that city so much. But now I'll go there with our son. Alone." Alexei lowered his head. He felt crushed, humiliated. He realized he had lost not only his wife but also his self-respect. He understood that he had made a huge mistake, but it was too late. "Why are you showing me all this?" he asked, looking up at her with desperate eyes. "I want you to know," Marina replied. "So you know that I'm not the burden you took me for. I'm not a helpless housewife living off you. I am a strong, independent woman who can take care of herself and her son too." She walked up to him, looked him directly in the eyes. "You betrayed me, Alexei," she said quietly. "You betrayed our love, our family, and I'm not going to forgive you." She took the documents from the table and put them back in the folder. She tied it with the ribbon. "You can take your things," she said, pointing to the door, "and leave forever." Alexei stood as if paralyzed. He couldn't believe what was happening. He had always thought Marina would wait for him, that she would forgive him. But in her eyes, he saw such resolve, such firmness, that he understood there was no hope left. He slowly stood up, picked up his jacket, and headed for the door. He stopped in the doorway and looked back. "Marina," he whispered, "forgive me." Marina didn't answer. She simply stood by the window, looking at the city, at the lights flickering in the darkness. She was looking into the future, into a new life in which there was no place for Alexei. Alexei left the apartment, the door closed behind him, and at that moment Marina felt a huge weight lift from her shoulders. She felt free. She walked to the mirror and looked at her reflection. In the mirror, she didn't see the tired, insecure woman she had been before. She saw a strong, beautiful, confident woman ready for new challenges, new victories, a new life. She smiled at her reflection. "Everything will be all right," she whispered. "Everything will definitely be all right." And she believed it, believed in herself, believed in her future. Alexei and Yulia's relationship, which had begun so passionately and promised ease, began to crack faster than Marina could have imagined. The lightness Alexei craved turned into banal irresponsibility and an unwillingness to solve everyday problems. Yulia, accustomed to entertainment and a beautiful life, turned out to be completely unsuited to the realities of cohabitation, especially when money became noticeably scarcer. Alexei was fired. Staff reduction, as the management explained, but he understood perfectly well that his constant lateness and absent-mindedness played no small role. Now he, the former head of the family, found himself dependent on Yulia, who, in turn, increasingly looked at him with reproach and irritation. Days turned into a string of petty arguments and mutual accusations. Yulia reproached Alexei for his lack of prospects, for not looking for work actively enough. Alexei, in turn, blamed Yulia for being mercenary and unwilling to support him in a difficult moment. "I thought you were different," she screamed. "You said you had everything under control, that you were successful, and now what? You're living off me." Alexei, accustomed to the peace and comfort Marina had created, now lived in constant noise and chaos. Yulia didn't bother with cleaning, preferring to spend time with friends or on social media. The refrigerator was empty, and dinner consisted of pre-made meals that Alexei cooked himself, feeling humiliated and helpless. One evening, when Yulia had gone to a party yet again, leaving him alone, Alexei couldn't take it anymore. He took out his phone and frantically dialed Marina's number. The ringing seemed to drag on agonizingly. He had almost lost hope when her calm voice answered. "Marina, it's Alexei." "I'm listening." Her voice was even without a trace of schadenfreude or sympathy. I need to talk to you." "We've already talked, Alexei. Everything that needed to be said has been said." "No, you don't understand. I made a mistake. A huge mistake." "Mistakes happen to everyone, Alexei. It's important to learn from them. I understand what I've lost. I've lost the most valuable thing I had. You lost it long ago, Alexei, when you started lying and betraying. I apologize, Marina. Forgive me. Give me a chance to fix everything. Yeah, I want to come back. Silence hung on the line. Alexei held his breath, awaiting an answer. It seemed like an eternity before Marina spoke again. Come back where? To the past? That's impossible, Alexei. The past is in the past. I live in the present and look to the future, and there is no place for you in this future. But what about us? What about our son? You can see our son anytime. I will never prevent your communication, but between us it's all over. I love you, Marina, Alexei cried out desperately. You don't love me, Alexei. You love your illusion. Your illusion of what a wife should be, of what life should be. But reality turned out to be different, didn't it? Give me a chance, Marina. I'll fix everything. I'll become different. You won't change, Alexei. You'll always look for the easy way out. And life isn't an easy path. It's about working on yourself, on relationships, and you're not ready for that. Please, goodbye, Alexei, and try not to call anymore. Marina hung up the phone. Alexei was left alone in the dark room with the phone in his hand and emptiness in his soul. He understood that he had lost everything: his wife, his family, his job, his self-respect. He himself had destroyed his life, and now he had only to reap the fruits of his mistakes. Marina, on the other hand, felt a sense of relief. The conversation with Alexei had put a final end to their relationship. She no longer felt anger, resentment, or pity, only a slight sadness that things had turned out this way. She focused on her son and her work. Her business flourished, bringing not only a stable income, but also satisfaction. And she rented a spacious apartment in a new neighborhood, where her son had his own room full of toys and books. Marina began attending photography courses, which she had long dreamed of. She met with friends, went to the cinema and theaters. She lived a full life, enjoying each day. One day, while browsing social media, Alexei accidentally stumbled upon Marina's page. He saw her photos, happy, smiling, confident. She stood against the backdrop of a Venetian canal, holding a camera in her hands. In her other hand, she gripped the hand of an unfamiliar man. Alexei felt a sharp pain in his chest. He realized that Marina was truly happy without him. She had found her love, her life, and he would never be a part of it. He closed his laptop and leaned back in his chair. Fragments of memories swirled in his head. Their wedding, and the birth of their son, quiet evenings by the fireplace. It all seemed so long ago, like from another life. He remembered her words. Alexei, it's not me you adore, but rather a fantasy you've conjured. He finally grasped the truth in her words. His affection wasn't for Marina, but for the idealized vision of a family he'd constructed. When the reality diverged from his aspirations, he retreated. He fled from his obligations, from the difficulties, from his very essence. Now he finds himself utterly alone, without kin, without employment, without optimism. He recognized his misstep, but the moment had passed. Marina had departed, leaving him to confront the searing ache of loss and the stark understanding of a lost opportunity. Meanwhile, Marina, observing her reflection, offered a faint smile. She saw a resilient and self-reliant woman who had weathered betrayal and agony without succumbing. She had rebuilt her existence from the ground up, and a bright horizon now awaited her. She was certain of a positive outcome, for she felt she had earned it. Taking her son's hand, they stepped out together into the world. A fresh dawn, brimming with happiness and anticipation, lay before them. And within this unfolding day, she was solely focused on the present and the path ahead, no longer burdened by the specter of the past.